What's going on? Move the Mouse here, back in City Skylines, the town of Santa Rico, with our Let's Play episode number 13. And today is all about kind of catching up. I've had to do more and more stuff kind of behind the scenes, but this one wasn't really as much of a building process as it was really kind of tearing apart the metro and starting everything from the ground up. And honestly, I did record it. It wasn't the most exciting thing, so I ended up scrapping it. I just wanted to do a recap of what's happened. So as we've built out and become a much larger city, I couldn't keep up with that one metro line that was defined for the longest time. So traffic is not in the worst spot. Let me bring up info views, kind of see where it's at. So it's at 74%. That's not great. It's not terrible. It's not necessarily negatively impacting growth, but we've got a couple intersections that we've got to look at. The biggest thing though was revamping the metro system, and that's what I want to talk about. Before we dive in though, I do want to say that I went in and redefined some districts. So I started repainting the districts. Actually, it's probably easier if we do it this way. I started redesigning some of the districts just so we could kind of define things out. Now, you may notice your name up there, because if you're a regular viewer and commenter, I've renamed some of the districts after you. So don't feel slighted if your name is not up here, because we're not finished yet, and you still have a chance to pop some comments in there. And if I haven't added your name in yet, I might down the road. So, but I wanted to say, just as always, thank you for all the support. Really appreciate it. So some of you have had again, certain buildings, certain streets, certain districts named after you. So we got Sammy Square, Howard Heights, Beamer Park, Lumen Square. Nason District is the university up there, and Caesar Square in the center here. And then we've got Adia Heights, and Adia, you've got the creative arts students in your district. So I'm not sure if I should congratulate you or provide my condolences, but I wanted to kind of name and redefine some logical separations. Got Byron Bay out here. So keep an eye out. You might notice there's other little things that I've renamed, like the institute here itself. It's now the Gizmonic Institute. You have the School of Custodial Arts and the School of Mad Science for you MST fans out there. But there's lots of little details and hidden things, so keep an eye out throughout the episode, and maybe your name will appear somewhere. Those are just some of the highlights. But again, thank you for all the support. Oh, one little one that's tucked away that I may forget is over here. I moved the tax office over here because I thought that kind of had like an old administrative building. But yeah, there's little touches, little bits and pieces, and renamed structures, streets, districts for a lot of the viewers out there. So thank you as always for the support. But with that out of the way, let's dive in and talk about what is really important today, and that's the revamped metro. So I'm actually going to pause things here for a minute because we've got some massive commercial demand. We do have some commercial problems happening, so there's not enough goods to sell in some cases. Some of them are not enough workers, depending on where they are in the town. Like over here, I need to get some more residents over here nearby. So those are some of the new problems that are cropping up. One of the old problems that went away, as you'll notice, or maybe you'll notice, the high-tech sector is having absolutely no problem selling goods. So we've got enough commercial businesses, and this is our only export right now. They don't even wait for each other to get out of the way. That's great. But this is generating a ton of traffic to import and export goods. So we will have to keep an eye on that. We might move this a little bit and provide it with some direct highway access. But for right now, this is providing our import export. We've got the last tile to buy, and I'm debating, do I buy over there and get some rail access, or do I square off our town? So I'm waiting to buy that last tile. I really haven't decided what I want to do yet. But I feel like this bottom right one would be wasted. So it might be one of these ones over here that will give us rail access, but again, I haven't decided. That is for future expansion, and eventually I will decide whether or not we're going to have rail access or not. But I get sidetracked. The whole thing that I wanted to talk about today is the metro. So as the city kind of grew and expanded, we had one kind of snaking route through the whole city. If we look at transport routes, I'll show you what I did with the metro here. And I want to talk about this in some very basic concepts first. So bear with me here for a minute. We've got a number of different lines, and I've, for the most part, kind of named where they cover. So you have the Central Park line here in green, which covers Central Park. Your Metro West in yellow. Metro East in blue. Metro North also in yellow. We could probably change the color on that. But the thing that I wanted to do here was provide as much coverage as possible, but there's kind of a trick to the way that I've snaked these tunnels in together so that people can easily transfer from one side of town to the other. So let me break out my roads here for a minute, because this is probably the cheapest way to demonstrate this, with some gravel roads off here on the side of the map. So let me bring out the curve tool, and we're just gonna bear with me for 1 minute while I draw out just a simple oval here. And kind of want to explain what I've done with the metro routes using this. So we'll just switch to our straight. I'm going to do a little cross path where the different stations are, for example. And this is a lot cheaper than actually building this in real metro tunnels. So I have routes like this, for example, around Central Park, right? So it goes all the way around there. Now, what you would do if this was your only metro route, you could do, say, a clockwise route, and then a counterclockwise route. And basically every metro tunnel has bi-directional traffic, and it adheres to whatever the rules of your roads are. So if you have left-hand driving on because you're in the UK or another country that you prefer that left-hand driving, the tunnels will do the same thing. So if we jump back over here, and the reason I want to do this is because I just wanted to explain real quick that you could, if you had one loop, do that route in both directions. Clockwise, counterclockwise, you're using both tunnels, providing twice as many trains at the same number of stops. Now, I could do that, but I did not do that, and let me show you why. And it's kind of how I was trying to cover as much area as possible with some overlapping routes. So if we zoom way in on this green line, which is the Central Park, this basically services Caesar Square, Central Park, and Sammy Square. So those three areas are covered by that. And we've got, you know, a central stop on either side, and then stops along the park in each of the four corners, and then a central stop up here. Now this is a clockwise route. So you'll see that I'm traveling this way around the loop. I'm going on the right-hand side, north to south, coming around, and it just does a circle. Now you could encircle that the other direction, but why I did not do that is because a lot of these tunnels overlap. So if you look at the Metro West line, for example, flashing in yellow right now on the screen, you'll see that this goes around the Lynch Hills and Victoria Heights and Hickory Park area, but now it's going to borrow part of this tunnel and link up with this station right here in the northwest section of Central Park. Now, if we had a clockwise and a counterclockwise route, I'd have another line kind of going around this central area, but here that tunnel is reserved for the yellow line, so you don't have trains waiting behind other trains. And then I've done the same thing over here with this orange line. You'll see it's moving in the opposite direction from the yellow train, and when we come down here, when we come down over here, it's moving the opposite line. It's moving in the opposite direction from the green line over here. So I've tried to reuse some of the tunnels and make it so that you can get from, you know, over here to Central Park to change lines to get up to the university, so that there's enough overlap that people will jump lines. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be the most logical thing. You know, it may seem confusing, but the Sims are going to calculate that path and understand that, oh, I need to go from A to B, and I'm going to use these points to get there. Whether it's roads, highways, metros, ferries, whatever, you know, sort of mass transit options you're giving them, they'll find a route, and based on that, they'll calculate a route. So they will very easily jump from station to station, and you can see when you zoom way in, you can actually see who's waiting for the yellow line versus the green line. You see the green line, pretty popular. The one that's the most popular though is my Airport Express one. So what I did with the airport was I kind of hooked this in, and this is where there is some overlap, but I've hooked this in and it runs along the bottom half of the city. So it's connecting up to a station where people can transfer to the yellow line. Down here, they could transfer to the orange line. It stops at this station so people can transfer to the green line. It stops here so they can transfer to blue and Beamer Park. It stops up here where they can transfer to the other yellow line in the Nason district and covering the north part of the city. And then it comes down here into our original Old Town, where you have some spotty coverage, but this side will get redesigned as we fill this out some more. But this kind of took a while to plan out and make it so that there was as little overlap as possible. So I ended up, again, scrapping the recording on that because it, isn't necessarily the most exciting thing for me to plan out. Well, this one should be counterclockwise because this one's clockwise, and kind of staggering that out through the whole city. So I just wanted to kind of show you what it looked like in the complete picture, the final puzzle all put together, basically, because it was a lot of work trying to get to this point. Now, we could kind of keep an eye on those transport routes, see where trains are backing up behind other trains, and or if they're not, then possibly add some redundant routes like a clockwise and counterclockwise route around here. But I wanted to start with this because it's a nice way to use a lot of the same tunnels, make it so that different lines can connect to other lines, and that Sims can get from really far away on many different lines. So I think it did a pretty good job of covering a lot of the major areas. I was looking at traffic to see sort of where are my most populated traffic areas, and let me move some people around so that they hopefully don't have to take cars in the future. But Metro was the first kind of piece of that puzzle. Now, what's interesting is if you look sort of at some of my worst intersections, right? Like over here, right here, this strip down here is all a lot of trucks coming in to the cargo area. And over here, like, you don't necessarily need the Metro at that location. It's more, this isn't people's ultimate destination that you're trying to solve, but there's a lot of traffic coming through here. So what can we do to prevent people from even wanting to come to this intersection in the first place? Well, we can kind of follow where they're going, look at the different routes, and kind of see where your traffic is ultimately arriving, and then give them Metro stops based on that. And that's what I was trying to do in this particular setup. So you see there's some kind of crazy tunnels. Some are much more simple, like the Metro North Loop up here in the Central Park. And then other ones I kind of wanted to hook in based on some of the trouble intersections. And I haven't let this play a whole lot, so we're just kind of ramping up to what's happening with kind of full capacity on those Metro lines. Next thing I have to do is load up the inspector tool and go in and look at some of these intersections from a traffic light perspective, because I might consider turning off traffic lights and giving certain intersections the right of way if they're getting backed up more than others. Like, obviously I haven't been back down this street because I didn't change these, and I totally would have done that. But what I like to do here is, since the traffic is kind of getting more backed up on this strip, is let's not make people wait there. Let's make the side street stop and give the right of way to the traffic on this road. And then when we get to busier four-way intersections like we do up here, like, this is okay to have a traffic light because we've got a decent amount of traffic coming from each direction. But this way we keep things kind of moving along down here. So there's a lot to think about, but Metro is definitely my favorite, and something that I wanted to do. I'm thinking of one of the next developments that we could put into place. This would be kind of cool to shake things up. Since we've done commercial around these main 4-lane avenues, I thought it would be kind of fun to do maybe a tram network, or at least a tram that runs north to south through what I've now renamed Old Town. If we look at info views and noise pollution, right? Commercial is what, well, that and industrial, those are things that noise pollute the worst. So since we're already making a lot of noise up and down this strip, we may as well have some tram or monorail coverage. So let's do that. Let's upgrade that for right now, just to kind of see how that works. So if you go into roads, specifically the medium roads, you have monorail roads, and then you also have tram tracks. So monorail does kind of a raised car raised train up above the road. And you can do those tracks completely independent. They don't necessarily need to be on the road, just like with trams. But tram is going to be, you know, what some of you might refer to as a streetcar. So we'll upgrade these roads from 4-lane roads to 4-lane with tram cars. Now this is going to get rid of the parking lane. You'll notice that as we come down this strip, like all these cars that are parked on the side of the road, they're just going to disappear because there's no longer a parking lane there. It's, you know, I kind of wanted to build this in, but I think it makes a huge difference in the kind of realism of a city, right? Because this feels much more lived in than, you know, this empty street that doesn't have any cars on it. I mean, just look right there. You know, that feels like it's a, you know, hustling, bustling neighborhood. And up here, I mean, you still got the motion, you still got the cars and the pedestrians, but it does kind of make it feel a little less lived in. It definitely, I think, has an effect if you just don't have the parking kind of widespread. Now, we do need to close this loop off. So much like some of the other service buildings, you need a metro station to define metro routes, you need a bus station to define bus routes, you need a tram station to connect to the loop so that the tram cars can leave in the morning and come back at the end of their shifts. So we've set that up right here on the end of this road. You can see anytime you get an intersection, it's going to cross all the routes that are necessary. Rather than buses, which you would snap over here to the side of the road, these you're snapping to the center. So we're going to create a route like that. Let's see, how far apart do we want to space these? So we'll bring them kind of down maybe halfway between here. Tram stops can be pretty close together. That's totally fine. You're just trying to move people on the surface a little bit easier. So we'll do them every couple blocks. And this is just kind of for aesthetics more than anything else. So let's come down here. So we've done that. Now we've got to do a little bit of a loop. We've got to find a way to loop this back in, because they don't do U-turns like the metros will do. So let's bring this out maybe one more block. And we'll use this space in here. So let's do this. So that should allow our tram car to come in this way, turn around and come back out. And okay, so now we've got that turnaround. So let's kind of stagger these. We'll come back to across the street from the metro. Across the street from our rotary. Right up here near our metro stop. Oh, I need to do a little loop here too. And then we'll just do that same sort of idea with a loop. That's a little sloppy, but we can do that. And we go back to our last, like if you need to recreate this on the fly, so you can drag a stop and move it, and then you'll be editing that line again. And then we can just come down here and complete the line. So here, let's play it. Let's hopefully see this. Oh, I hadn't done a tram on Xbox. I'd only done it on the PC version. Let's go into this mode, see where people go. Now it does create intersections. It does have to merge with traffic. Something that's nice about the monorail is it's totally elevated and above the traffic. Moving around a lot of people. I think it gives it a nice touch. So it's a very different feel, right? You feel much more lived in, I think, with the parking on the sides of the road. But the trams give it a lived-in feel because you see all those people that got off the tram to go to the metro, which is nice. So we're using public transit to get to other public transit. So people are using it already, which I like. So it's just a very different feel. I could work on these turnarounds a bit. Like this is kind of super wonky and tying up a ton of space. So we could do something with that down the road, but I just wanted to drop in some more transit options just so you can kind of see what that stuff looks like. Again, the nice thing about the metro is you could just dead end a line and the train will come back the other direction. But these are streetcars that need full turnarounds. Basically, they can't just start reversing because then they'd be going the wrong way down the tram track. I guess in theory you could if you only had one tram, but that's not how this one works. So it'll take itself a minute to come back around, and we can follow it back up that way if we want. But there's a couple mass transit options, and I think this tram has a nice kind of look and feel for our old town down here, which we want to keep very small and suburban and kind of residential focused. That hospital needs to go. That hospital is way too big for down here. We'll just have to drop a couple med clinics, and I did that for coverage. That does not fit with the size of the buildings that are surrounding it. We've got a bunch of tram cars actually on this one line. That's pretty cool. But it's bringing people, as you can see, up and down this main strip, moving along with traffic. Now you can very easily see kind of where the stops are, right? There. All the people get on, get off. And they'll go down to the nearest crosswalk, and in this case, a ton of them are taking the metro. So it's good. We're using mass transit to get to other mass transit. I'll tighten up these curves at some point, but we're taking traffic off the road, which is good. Let's take a look actually at our info views and traffic. So we're at 73%. You know, we definitely got some intersections that we can look at. I'm going to kind of go through here with a fine-tooth comb, but one of the biggest things is just kind of looking for intersections like this that have stoplights. There isn't enough, in my opinion, north to south traffic here. So I'm going to take that traffic light off. Yeah, I'm going to take that traffic light off for sure, so that the east to west traffic has the right of way. And it's just a thing that you keep an eye on. I mean, traffic lights may be appropriate in some circumstances at the busier intersections, but I like to kind of force people one way or the other based on how you design your roads. They're going to take the fastest route possible. So it's not necessarily the most direct, it's the fastest. And bigger roads generally allow you to travel at higher speeds. So highway, then 6-lane, then 4-lane, then 2. So the better the road, usually the more often they'll prefer it. But again, it depends on the overall travel time is basically what they calculate on. And speed comes into play quite a bit there. So it's something to keep an eye on. We'll look at some of those heavier intersections and see what can we do with traffic lights, but also what can we do to divert people away from that intersection. Can we do some one-ways, force them into different areas that are less trafficked? So it's really just kind of a matter of pulling up that traffic info views every once in a while, sort of seeing where your problems are and deciding how can you fix them. And actually that's a lot worse than I thought it would be. But this rotary is going to need some work. We'll come up with something there. I'll definitely record if I come up with a fix for that. But you can see some of these are just things you can manage by diverting traffic flow, changing the lights. If you're using the PC and you have the traffic manager mod, something that you can very easily kind of time lights and force people to turn in certain lanes. So there's some nice extra options that you can do on PC with Traffic Manager Present Edition, but kind of ways that you can trick them out and kind of force them to flow down different roads. You can do with one-ways, you can do with an extra incentive for mass transit and things like that. So there's definitely ways that you can fool it in the meantime, even if you don't have access to mods or just want to kind of treat the game the way it was meant to be played, there are definitely things that you can do. Overall, though, 75% is not necessarily a bad thing for traffic flow. I can definitely deal with that. So let's take a leisurely stroll out in our Central Park as we outro here today. I want to keep things kind of brief. There's a lot of little projects that we can work on, but kind of talking about the metro and taking a little look at the trams, that was kind of my intent today. So we still haven't set up any bus routes, taxis. There's lots of other things that we can do in the next episode. So we'll slowly start to build out some of the transit options and get our population climbing even further. I'm going to pause it right now because we're at just shy of 110,000 and I've got a ton of demand. And when you have a ton of demand for commercial and industrial, it usually means you've got a pretty high unemployment because people aren't asking to move here. They're asking to get jobs here. So definitely something that I want to focus on next. I'm going to zone out some more of that. Over here, probably. This is a pretty big office park right now. We've got some room there. We've also got all this space that I want to fill out, though I want to keep this very much residential focused. We can address some of our commercial demand over here, not a lot of it. And we'll start to fill out some of these areas. So on the next episode, we'll pick up kind of where we left off. I want to drop more of the monuments in. So we've only dropped in the fusion power plant, and I dropped in the Hadron Collider as well down here. This covers right here. Sorry, here it is. This covers your education needs for the entire city, and the fusion power plant covers all the power needs. So you'll see my power availability is just off the chart, and that is at reduced budget as far as down as it'll go. We're still producing like 4 times as much power as we need. And then education wise, you can see that the capacity now for all my schools, elementary, high school, and university, is up in the millions. So it basically gives you 1 million capacity across the board. People will travel, but these monuments basically allow you to turn off the other education buildings if you wanted to. The health monument was the medical center, what they call it. That allows you to turn off all hospitals. Eden allows you to reduce all pollution. So they do some really remarkable things. They're kind of end game, late game cheats. But I'm going to leave all those buildings active because I kind of like, you know, zooming into a hospital and seeing activity, seeing people in ambulances coming and going. You know, just it makes the city feel more alive. It does add the challenge because you are paying the budget for all those things, but at this point, money we're not really too worried about. And we'll be able to drop in all those monuments, drop in some more of the uniques that I haven't dropped in yet. And one of the last ones actually was unlocked during the recording of this episode. It's Central Park. So this is a massive park, not as massive as the one that I'm planning on building, but we can actually drop that in. Let's do it right now. We're going to destroy this one. I'll rebuild that later. Let's pause. We'll rethink our footpaths here. In fact, I think it'll just delete these footpaths, but let's make some space. And we'll drop our Central Park in. I like to center this as best as I can. I mean, this is a massive building, right? This is a massive structure. But you can see like how much bigger I wanted my Central Park to be. Now we can connect that up with footpaths. This actually has a street that runs through it. Which maybe we can just connect up to here for now, just to technically make it accessible to cars that want to drive up. But you can see all the different points that you can connect footpaths to now. So let's break that out. I always get sidetracked doing some big project right at the end of an episode. So let's curve it maybe from here. It'll let me. That's okay. Kind of mirror that on the other side, so we'll come out, curve it into there. And then I want to get these kind of connected back up to my side streets, maybe right over by my metro station. So we'll do that and connect this one about over here. This is so much easier without the snapping turn on, but I don't feel like turning it on and off. So now we've got a Central Park that will actually function as one. You can see that there is a fountain and a plaza and an amphitheater. But when Park Life eventually comes out, we're going to basically make this one gigantic park, and we'll be able to snap in little structures like that, you know, gazebos and cafes and restrooms and all sorts of stuff into this same space. But we just unlocked that, so I wanted to drop that in before we called it a day, but I think that's a good spot to end. So if you enjoyed the video, likes, comments, shares, as always, really help the channel a lot and are greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new here, hit the bell to get notifications, and until the next one, this is Move the Mouse signing off. We'll see you on the next one.